Welcome you all to Health and Safety in the Workplace, from boardroom to coalface. Everyone, please put your hands together and have a nice warm welcome to Andrew Barrett, the founder of Safety on Tap podcast, Michael Padden, Senior Health and Safety Leader, and Kobe Simat, CEO of Best Practice Certification. Alright Andrew, take it away.
Thanks very much, guys. We were joking before we started that this was going to be the only slide that I was going to put up, and we were going to have a really deep and meaningful reflection about life. This is just the first slide, I promise. We've got more. So I had a chat to a couple of you beforehand, so I thought it would be worthwhile for us guys up here, who are visitors to your place, to learn a little bit more about you before we tell you a little bit more about us. We've also got Mick here. So Mick is Scottish. And originally I thought he was English, and I was going to say don't hold that against him, but I think most people like Scots. So Mick is an operational performance coach and on major projects. And major projects are those kinds of projects which are pretty significant in the sense of the scale, the money, the risk, the complexity. The project that Mick's working on at the moment is the M4 East project, the road project which the Sydney siders will know about. And so part of operational performance, obviously, health and safety is really, really important. And so that's Mick's focus. He's also an avid user of the app. So developer guys, you've got great customer representation here. We've also got Kobe Simat. Kobe's the CEO of Best Practice Certification, which is Australia's fastest growing management systems certification company. And he's a bit of a disruptor. I don't think he calls himself a disruptor, but I'd call him a disruptor. And so part of what his industry does is they do lots of audits. You guys will be familiar with audits. But Kobe's mob don't do audits. They don't use that A word. And I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Kobe's come off the back of a long career working in health and safety and environmental management and quality, both in consulting and in an auditing capacity. So that's these two guys, and we're here for the Q&A at the end of my little talk. What are the barriers to health and safety? What holds us back from health and safety? Whatever that means. So I'll talk about a couple of barriers that are on my mind that I think are potentially pretty useful for us to think about needing to work through. Fundamentally, sometimes we get caught up in all of the stuff in the middle. Your code, your public inspection library, the millions of dollars you got last year of venture capital money, all of that stuff is impressive. The podcast that I host, the talk that we're doing today, that's all the stuff that sits in the middle. But ultimately, like you said, Sam, it's about the health and safety is an outcome. Health and safety is not a process, it's not an act, it's not what we're talking about on my talk today. Health and safety is an outcome, as you say, which is people going home safe and healthy every day. That then a lot of the effort, especially in the last few decades, in trying to improve the outcome of health and safety has been focused on how do we constrain and control these people, these amazing human beings. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And so when you think about all of the amazing things that we've done, we've got great potential in terms of our intellect and our problem-solving ability and our ability to create and relate and our emotion, and yet none of that, almost none of that is actually harnessed towards that outcome of health and safety, but rather it's trying to control people. So I think that in terms of that barrier, there's great opportunity for us to have a look at people being the solution, not the problem. As a mindset, I think that that will go a great way to actually helping to solve more health and safety problems and have a greater influence on that outcome as opposed to trying to control it. Now the truth is that things go right the vast majority of the time. And so when we're trying to learn in order to improve health and safety, when we focus on when things go wrong, that's only a fraction of the time. And so by extension then, we're missing out on a whole bunch of opportunity to learn. And so if we flip that around and we actually go, well, what if we focus more on when things go right and what we can actually learn about that? Maybe we could boost those things or replicate those things or share those things. And maybe that would improve health and safety. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't focus on when things go wrong, because that has contributed to a huge amount of people going home safe and healthy. There's no question about that. We have made strides in terms of looking after people in the workplace because of the risks we're managing. But I think we're not learning as much as we could if we continue to obsess and to focus in that place. And Toby will probably attest to this, as will Mick, that sometimes we just have this tendency to risk assess things to within an inch of their life. And we create more audits and more inspections and more reporting and data and documentation and systems and legal laws and things like that. And it just goes on and on and on. And I think to some extent we're missing the point. Learning is how we improve. So if we're not learning, we're not improving. That's the very reason why we have evolved to not eat the orange mushrooms and to work out that we should plant wheat at a certain time of the year and that germs contribute or cause diseases. That's the sort of stuff that we have learned which has helped us evolve. And so learning is a really important part. I think we're missing the point if we're obsessing around when things go wrong. Ultimately, good work is good for our health, and it's good for our family, and it's good for our society, and it's good for our economy. And so we'll go a long way to improving health and safety, where at the moment we continue to do a lot of the same things and we're not getting better results, if we actually start to focus on those two areas that we talked about and switching them around so that people are focused on as the solution, not the problem, and that we focus on and try and improve on when things go right, as opposed to obsessing over when things go wrong. Our mission is to help leaders who want to grow themselves and drastically improve health and safety along the way. So the theory is better people who are working in health and safety, who are influencing what happens in health and safety, better health and safety outcomes. That's our mission. As we grow and develop and we listen to these people who are seeking to grow themselves and have a better impact in health and safety, that's evolved into a new venture which we're launching in May in just a couple of weeks' time, which is called Safety on Tap Connected. And so what we realised is that if you have a look at the learning theory behind how people learn, that creating a podcast or reading something or teaching someone in a classroom is actually only contributing to a very, very small amount of what we actually learn. We learn a vast amount more from other people, socialising in a social sort of sense, from mentors and coaches and managers and leaders and people with different experiences, and from just doing the job, from just working, from trying things and failing and doing new things and reflecting on how that went. And so that's what Safety on Tap Connected is all about. So we're trying to take the learning and the development of people to invest their careers, their working lives in trying to impact that outcome of health and safety and actually support their development and growth and learning over the long term. And so the idea is that we connect people with each other so that they can learn from each other in a social sense. We connect people with new ideas and perspectives, which we started with the podcast and we continue. We connect people with their better selves through a coaching process with me, one-on-one, so that people can set their individual goals and strive towards those and work through barriers and challenges. And we connect people with new ideas and content and education, I suppose you could call it, that they don't get anywhere else, but are the things that actually make them truly effective as a health and safety type person. Mick and Kobe and I are here at your service, so I hope we can answer some of your questions.
So you talked about outcomes, and a lot of what we do has to do with measuring progress towards those outcomes.
Yeah.
How do you measure progress?
That's a good question. One of you guys want to take that?
And so a large part of that financial system is about maybe having a customer or a revenue income stream and then paying your salaries. And then a small part of that organisation, despite most people's popular belief, is around making a profit. And the average company might make, the average company, and there's 2 million companies in this country, might make a 10% if they're lucky profit per year. And so when we talk about progress in the sense of a financial system, we talk about maybe the increase to the revenue growth. So there's a top line number. So when we break that down to some of the examples that Andrew's just talked about, we can talk about numbers of fatalities as a headline number in some of the countries around the world. and we might look at the progress in terms of the reduction. In first world countries like Australia, we might look, because we don't have many fatalities, and it's, you know, it floats around the 50, you know, between, you know, 45 and 60 per year here as an average over the last 20 years. You know, so we don't have many of those, but we've got 2 million companies. So what can we look at? We can start to look at maybe the next level down, which is major injuries, for example. Or we can look at, maybe because we haven't got major injuries, we can start to look at minor injuries and maybe lost time. So at a very, very high level, we can start to draw a synergy between a financial system and a safety system. We can look at those headline numbers. However, when we really want to get technical about it, I would start to look at some of the lead indicators, and this might draw a connection to what you guys are looking at. That when we had the optimum number of 2.5 or 2.4 pre-starts per person per shift, we would have a clear run of production of about 4 weeks. Now, when we dropped below 2.4 inspections or audits, if you like, per person per shift, we would have 2 weeks to a major incident. So when we start to measure progress, we could see that obviously progress can progress in a positive way, but also a negative way. And so that may be a connection that I can draw in terms of how we would look at some of those lead versus lag measures.
So what's the main cultural change you've seen that we could impact to help with that?
That I've seen that's worked. Your view, Kobe, because you'd see lots of different businesses with high levels of control on systems and maybe some that are a little more fluid.
Now, I think at a starting point with, like, just going back to the point around the barrier, you know, we're talking about, you know, people are the barrier or people are the solution. You know, I guess I've got a really cool job where we've got 750 companies that we audit 4, 5, 6, 10 times a year. And I've got a crew of people out doing that. And so, just to quote Picasso, which I've been doing a lot this week, is good artists copy and great artists steal. So, yes, we're the fastest growing company, you know, in our industry, and I might be a disruptor, if you call me a disruptor, but I've just stolen all the great ideas from all of our clients and implemented them in our company. And, you know, all jokes aside, one thing that I've unpacked is this concept of motivation and the concept of you guys motivated. So, and are my guys motivated? Like, if you don't want to be here, don't be here. Like, I will take you on your journey to where you need to go. Huge network. Across 750 companies, I know most of the CEOs and most of the people that run those companies, and most of those companies have got a job going right now. So if you don't want to work here, then let's find you somewhere that you want to work, that is your why, if you're into Simon Sinek and your passion and all that sort of great stuff. Then while you are here at Best Practice, let's do 5 things before you come to work. Let's get up in the morning and meditate. Let's eat amazing ingredients, because I pay people, right? And I pay them for their labour. But we're not bricklayers, we're not tradesmen. I pay them for their intellect, so I pay them for their brain. So I hire their brain for 7.6 hours a day, for 38 hours a week. I need that brain in optimal condition. So we pick on people, we bully people that eat shit. And it's just how it is at Best Practice. And if you don't like it, leave. And that's how we hire people. And it's all over our YouTube channel, and it's in all of our videos. So get up and meditate, do whatever that is. There's a group of us that go fishing before work because it's easy. Drop the boat in, the boat ramp at Long Reef, and out we go. There's 3 or 4 of us that do that. There's some of us that surf. There's some of us that go for a run, but I encourage everybody to exercise. And if they haven't exercised when they get to work, turn around at the front door, I'm still paying you, go out for a walk. We've got a huge driveway out of our office, just walk that, you know, or take the stairs. Now, I know this sounds crazy and it might sound bullying and people hate me for saying this, but it's like meditate, exercise, eat amazing ingredients, then have a plan. And as the CEO of Best Practice, I want to know what people's plan is. What's your plan? Like, when's the next holiday? Are you hanging out with your boyfriend, girlfriend, friend, family, cat, dog, budgie, whatever on the weekend, whatever your thing is? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to buy a boat? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to be a billionaire? What's your plan? Because what we're talking about with health and safety is a safe way to make money. Now, as an owner of a business, I do lie awake at night. I worry where my staff are because they're all travelling all of the time. Are they in a hotel? Are they safe? Has their car broken down? Are they going between mine sites? Did they get bullied on the day? You know, what are all those issues? How did they go? Are they stressed? Are they in the room? Something's happening with their family? Are they crying? Are they upset? All of that stuff keeps me awake at night. So for me, it's about understanding that they're happy with making money themselves. You guys come to this organisation to make money. That's what you do. You've chosen an employment path to make money at this point in your life. So for me, it's about understanding that they're passionate and they're happy to make money at best practice, because that's what they do. And it's a safe way to do that, and a risk-free way to do that, if you like. So, you know, we talked about, you know, going home after work. So then what we do is we say, okay, well, what's your plan? Tell me that, so I know what their plan is. What's your career journey? I want to be the CEO. I want to be the CFO. Excellent, because I can resign, because I don't necessarily want this role. But you know, when you talk about that framework, then we say, what's the plan at work? And that's the last thing that we do. So we understand that people are ready to start work, they're happy, they're motivated. In this industry, we're talking about drug and alcohol testing, that sort of stuff. We don't have to do that. But it's about, that, okay, everybody's lined up and they're ready, and we don't start them unless they're not. And we're talking about, I've got, you know, people like you know, he's one of them. And then I can say, okay, right, let's connect my plan and my vision and my mission with running the business with your plan. If they don't connect, let's find a place where you are connected. And so my point was around motivation. And so I feel, certainly with my team, that when they're more motivated, they're more likely to comply. When they're excited, when they're bought into the vision, and you don't need to have thousands of forms and checklists and audits and policies and procedures and documents when your team are motivated and excited. You guys understand the hierarchy of control? What we're talking about is the bottom of the hierarchy of control, right? Checklists and forms and policies and procedures. But when people are motivated and excited, like Germany was in the World Cup, if you follow football, they didn't have thousands of policies and procedures and inspections and forms and checklists. They were just a team that bought into the vision and the mission and motivated to each solve problems to achieve that outcome, if that makes sense. Of course, accidents happen, you have injuries, and they've got great people to sweep in and look after those people. So I think, you know, my comments and I focus on, this is probably where I am the disruptor in our industry, because that's what I'm focusing on. And we'll go into an audit, and we call them that, we call them a best practice assessment. Because we call them an audit, people scared, they back off. We call them a best practice assessment, they're like, this is exciting. And that's the start of this little iceberg of what I'm doing in the industry. But that's my point, is what's your why? And then the challenge, and you might buy into this with what's happening on the building site, is that the leader sets the tone. The leader sets the tone. So if you've got a leader that's swearing and cussing and fuck this, and we haven't got a 10% P&L and all that sort of stuff, then that culture's not going to exist.
You're right. I agree with you. And a lot of the factors that I do in my job is I make my CEO comfortable at night. That's what I do. One of the things that I do and go out to the teams is say, hey, you own this job. You take that ownership out there. You are the end product. You are the people that are going to build this. And how do we buy that engagement these days? Because, you know, they're paid pretty well, a lot of these guys that go out there. Especially, you know, in the oil and gas and mining industry where I've been, they earn a lot of good money. So what keeps them motivated to do that? It's about the why. Why are they doing it? What did they get out of this? Can we give them that, hey, you go out there, you do it this way, we know that this is the hazards that we find out there, how are you going to deal with them? You come up with the best plan. I'm just the guy that's going to mediate between that and give you some help and maybe some tools to get along that way. You know, but you've got the brain. Let's use this brain here and let's really get into that. Why are we doing this? Why is it done this way? And how are we going to do it? And how can we do it better? Use some phrases around our industry. Again, Ackman's good, better, how. These are things that we feel are really important to our teams out there. So
I'm going to steal that one. Better how.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably, I mean, what Kobe and Mick have talked about are probably less common in businesses overall. And again, this is not specific to health and safety, but it is really about going, instead of, well, I should say health and safety have been probably more guilty of it than other disciplines or professions, because businesses traditionally went, well, we're killing lots of people, and so that's affecting our P&L, so that's not a good thing. And then the laws came in and then it became something that got removed from work as normally done. And it became this thing that you needed special knowledge for. So I need to understand the law, or I need to understand how to manage risk. And I think that deviation started to separate out this concept of health and safety from this concept of work. And so as that's evolved over time, where we go, oh, we're hurting more people, and so we need maybe more rules or more procedures or more checks. And so that became the evolution in this controlling sort of context, such that you had a whole bunch of people telling experts, the guys on the tools, how to do their job. That's just dumb. And that's one of the things that I've been guilty of. You know, I've been guilty of that. I've written procedures of how to do jobs that I have never done before in my life. Now, the way that I did that was by sitting down with the people who were the experts and saying, let's crowdsource this. Right, so that's I think probably as close as we can get in some circumstances to getting that engagement and turning that people are the problem into the solution. But there's plenty of people that you would see on sites who would go, like Kobe says, oh fuck, safety guy's coming, or the boss is coming or whatever, because they've been told to do a check, and I'm going to tell you with my checklist how to do your job that someone else wrote somewhere else. That just doesn't make sense. And so, you know, one of the best ways to sort of round off the question, I think one of the best ways that I see to actually go about doing this people are the solution bit is for everyone else who's not doing the job to shut their mouths and listen. So to use their mouth and their ears in that ratio, and maybe just ask some really good questions. Things like, what's working well today? What's not working well? What's a challenge that you're facing? And how are you trying to overcome that challenge? What would you do differently tomorrow compared to today? And those are the sorts of questions which some people call reflective learning. That's the bit where we actually go, well, in our experience, how do we capture what happened and bottle it up so that we can learn something in that interaction, but then maybe we can share that with other people. So we might share that the next morning in the pre-start meeting, and Mick has to get up at 5:30.
I've got a question. I wanted to ask each one of you to, like, we basically talk about safety as something as, like, doing audits or some sort of, you know, trying to prevent an accident. I just wanted to hear your opinion of whether you think with technology, apart from doing auditing, or where do you see technology fit to help you to prevent incidents or accidents, I should say?
That's a great question.
Do you guys know the history of audits?
This is good. I'm glad you talked about it.
Do you know this? Do you know who invented audits? You know where it came from?
Safety culture.
Have you heard of Edwards Deming? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I won't go deep into his history, but this guy, out of the back of, you know, all the Harvard and Stanford business studies around business productivity and manufacturing. So, you know, quality of products coming off a production line. Invented this sort of, you know what, we better go and have a look and see how things are going concept. And, you know, I won't go into the details of it, but it was obviously backed by military funding to try and increase, you know, productivity and quality of arms. And so, and then, you know, off the back of the Second World War, this movement starts. We better look and check. So, you know, I can't sort of communicate who claimed or coined the term audit, whether it was financial first or quality.
I would say financial.
Well, I'm not entirely sure. And there's probably some history behind the term, but I guess that, you know, in terms of looking at the history, we're coming off the back of the Second World War. We've got an industrial revolution. We've got, you know, some countries making good stuff and some countries making not so good stuff, and some good companies and some not so good companies. You've got guys like Henry Ford reinventing the whole production line with putting a chain through his factory, and let's put the buggies and hook them on the chain, and they'll pull them through, and we'll leave people at the station, and they'll put the doors on, and that guy will do the engine. And they had, you know, Model T Fords being produced in under 2.5 hours. So that's sort of the history of sort of productivity and production and increasing in quality. And then you start talking about things like financial reviews. Now, if you really look at what I believe is the definition of an audit, it's not financial, because they go through and they check every single transaction against the evidence and ensure that it's in the right journal. So when you talk about, the big audit houses that exist, they're not doing audits, they're doing an inspection of every single thing. They're looking at every single transaction they're going through, and that's why these financial audits take months to conduct. And then they write the report, they've moved everything around, it's all in the right spot, and the books are clean. Whereas, I guess there's this philosophy around random sampling or priority-based sampling to look at something. So then we've got to say, okay, well, do you guys understand where an audit fits into a cycle? So what's the whole point? So Edwards Deming created this, what he called the cycle of continual improvement, which is plan, do, check, act. And so going through that cycle, what you guys are talking about is this checking stage, which is an inspection or an audit. When you guys have ultimately created a very mobile tool to be able to take people from what is effectively, let's create a Microsoft Word document, or even just handwrite a few boxes that we're going to go out and tick. And so, to quote my father, my team of people are the professional checkers that do the checking and the checkers that check the checkers. So, when you look at that, you're talking about plan, do, check, act. So your question was, where's technology, or what's technology, right? So yes, we're talking about a piece of technology that solves a problem. The problem I think you guys are solving is mobilising and then centrally bringing back information that's been gone and looked at. So they can create what they want to look at somewhere, and then someone mobile can go and look at it and report back. But I think we've got to look at, from a technology perspective, a number of stages. And the first stage is the short-term view in terms of where we're going. Where we're going is to a place where we have proximity monitoring, which there is the sensor piece, which currently exists. So we've got that in dogs at the moment. This dog walking around has a microchip in it. It's the law here in New South Wales. When the dog's born, it goes to the vet, it gets its shots, and bang, it gets a microchip. The microchip's got a number, and you can run a scanner over it, and you know the dog's owner. Well, if someone's updated the database, the dog's got some details there, and we can track the owner. So there's that proximity. Now, with good RFID scanning, you could check the dog in and out of the office, whether it's gone for a pee or whether it's here in the office. And that's not expensive technology. You can get it on eBay for about $50. The dog walks itself. So I guess there's a couple of examples. So the short-term example from a technology perspective is there's a number of trucking companies that run interstate. They're running interstate right now between Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, overnight interstate, moving air freight. And those drivers are on the second, because there's a particular organisation that flies air freight into Australia and lands it at the first available airport, and then interstates it overnight so that they can charge air freight rates on the road. Those drivers have glasses, not dissimilar from Andrew's, that are tracking blinks per second. They can track fatigue, and it will shut down the truck. So it'll send off a bunch of sensors, and then if there's a full-on blink, it'll shut down the truck, and the truck's just going to lock up and break in its position. That's the worst-case scenario, but they're pulling, their alerts and signals and phone calls and all that sort of sets off a chain of command. So from a technology perspective, it's all driven obviously by the 4G network where it exists, or the 3G network off the back of the Telstra network, connected to whatever Bluetooth device in the cabin of the truck. And what's that all about? It's got nothing to do with the safety of the driver. It's about the value of the freight at the end of the day, and the risk of the value of the freight. But it was pitched as a safety project to get funding. But it's about productivity. But that's okay. Saving guys' lives. I'm okay with that. I don't care. It's got a health and safety outcome. So that's the short range. So where's that technology go? Someone's going to come up with version 2, version 3. Then it's going to be maybe a different set of glasses, and maybe it's going to be a monitor in the truck, so you don't have to, because the drivers will take the glasses off, all that sort of stuff.
And then they'll take the driver out of the truck. And they're doing that in Europe now.
That's exactly right. So there's that sort of, there's that piece which is the short range technology. Then there's the medium range technology, which I'm starting to look at from my business's perspective, which is, do we need to be there? Do we need to be there? And we're working with clients that have got robotic jackhammers, for example. So their staff, robotic jackhammers. So their staff in here, for example, there would have been a point in time when this building had a bunch of asbestos in it. The jackhammers are just on tracks. It's a little heavy unit. The jackhammer can go above its head, so it's a little robotic unit. 90-pound jackhammer. When I was labouring, when I was on building sites, it's like above your head with a 90-pound jackhammer. And when I was 21, I was ultra fit. You lug these things in, you've got an air line running out, you've got a compressor running out on the street, you've got fumes, you've got all that sort of stuff, you've got dust, all those sorts of things. So I actually suffer from a little bit of industrial deafness because of that time out of construction sites. So the robotic jackhammers now, the guys are sitting out in their utes. They bring the jackhammer up to the top of the stairs and the rest is remote control with a whole bunch of cameras. They shut everything down, they put on the breathing apparatus, come back in, clean the lenses of the cameras and go back out, sit in the truck. So, you know, that's at the moment, it's not super expensive technology, but there's a number of companies trying to break into that space. So that removes the need for an inspection. So it makes your software redundant. So it's something to consider in terms of we are in a place at the moment where we're talking to people. Now, it's going to make your software redundant in about 25 years because we've got laggards that on the adoption curve that are going to take a long time. They're going to be happy with that. So I would be starting to think about you guys in terms of your age group and the people that are 5 years, 10 years younger than you and starting to look at that. Now, those people are not going to want to go to work. And they're going to be happy to be on the couch. And they're not going to need to. The infrastructure we're building, the roads, all that sort of stuff, that's for us now. That's not for 25 years from now. We live stream our 2 offices with Google Hangouts. It's just free, so we just use it. And we've got webcams. So I save a shitload on flights. So all of a sudden my staff are safer because they're not up in the air in aeroplanes. We've got people about to move to London and they're going to be working out of Bristol. And we're just going to run the Google Hangout. They're going to be working from home. They're still full-time employees of best practice that's in Brookvale, you know, up on the northern beaches, but in Bristol, using Google Hangouts, because everything's cloud-based. So, from a workplace perspective, there's obviously the automation of the, you know, and from a fatality perspective, because fatalities cost so much money, there's that whole piece. So, I think that, you know, I don't have the solution for you guys in terms of this company, and that's up to you guys to sort of think about. But what we're talking about is, now you guys won't remember this time, but we will. Remember a time when you didn't have an email address at work?
I didn't know what an email was until about 2000.
Exactly right. I don't know about this guy, but like I didn't get
What's
my
email?
I didn't get my first email address until 2000, and that's when I was given an email address at work. Prior to that, we all had fax machines. So
And pages.
no, I'd never skip that. But I think big Ericsson brick thing as a mobile phone. But I think so. I think the thing to consider is that the high-risk workplaces will be increasingly automated. And so, you know, if you check out our YouTube channel, how long do you reckon, Jack? About 2 weeks. Today we interviewed a process automation engineer. And so we didn't talk into the future today. We probably neglected to deal with the elephant in the room, to be honest. But that's the sort of thing to think about. So I think that the short-term step that, you know, I called you guys 6 months ago. I do, you know, in excess of 3,000 audits a year, and I said I want to start talking to you guys about what we can do. Sorry, can't help you because it's not centralised information. Now that may have changed. And so I think what the biggest client challenge that we see across all of the companies that we audit is yes, this information is great in terms of going out into the marketplace, but the fast analysis and reporting so that we can identify quickly trends and issues and alerts is important. And it's exactly what you talked about. So it's the mobility of an inspection just happened and it does this escalation process. I think the most critical thing that you guys could be doing is having an escalation mode that goes straight to someone like myself who is dealing with a number of levels of bureaucracy in my team. And I've got a meeting at 8:30 tomorrow morning with someone who's not escalating information to me. And he's one of my senior managers in a critical part of the business. And it's just not his culture to escalate. And so it's great to do this stuff, but the CEO's balls are on the line, or if she's a lady, the CEO's job, personal life and families on the line. So you talk about that situation where we talked about what was the gentleman's name? We were talking about your example. Darryl. So I was with a client on Monday, and these 2 statistics that I'll talk about in a minute don't contribute to the industrial fatalities here in Australia, the employment fatalities. That company has had 2 staff murdered in the last 12 months. And it's because it's a crime, it skipped the employment fatalities, but it happened at work. Now there's security guards. Security guards upset somebody because they were doing their job, and then the next day the guy came back and knocked them off. And he was caught and he's in jail and all that sort of stuff, but 2 staff murdered. Now, if you talk about the information you guys are doing, that's excellent. But I just don't know that I've seen a system, and I see hundreds of software systems, I haven't seen a system that really deals with this need to, okay, what do we do next? You know, and what do we do about this stuff? You know, we've got the checklist, we've got it. And so this guy has to stand up every morning at 5. He has to go every morning at 5:30. You got kids? Yep. So, you know, we've all got kids, and we miss that time with our kids because we've got to go, you know, and shoot videos at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. I haven't told them that yet. You know, shooting videos at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, so I'm missing my 6-year-old getting up. And I love that time, you know, and this afternoon to come and help you guys. I missed that. And I'm in trouble with him. So, it's that stuff that we're missing out on because I want my people to be safe and happy and running a business. And so I think that, you know, I'm carrying on now in terms of being on the soapbox, but it's that piece in terms of the technology that you guys, is the shortest opportunity to easy fruit to pick, is to solve that problem. Solve the problem, don't create something. Like I see this think customer. Does your avatar have a name here? Do you know what an avatar is? What's your avatar's name? Do they have a name? Who are they? Give them a name. Ours is Trevor. So our CFO
on the wall right there.
Excellent, perfect. So give them a name. So our CFO wanted it to be Cedric, and it got knocked down by the rest of the business. It's Trevor. And so what we talk about is like, these guys, and this is one of your customers right here, what is his problem? The problem, and go out on site and spend the day, come with me, come with my team. You know, we've got 750 companies, and talk to Trevor or Bill or Anne or whoever it is, or Mick, about their problem. And people come to me with, I've got this great thing. And I'm like, what problem does it solve? Look, it's not a problem for me. I don't actually like it because it doesn't solve a problem. And I think that's the critical pathway to where you guys can go. And I can honestly say, if you can help to keep people out of jail, then that's a good thing, and that's what's going to fund the work. Because you've got this thing that's going to keep the CEO out of jail, or the senior management out of jail. And we are, as directors, asset directors, very, very worried about that. From a financial perspective, I've got tax reporting. From a safety perspective, I've got safety requirements. From a customer perspective, I've got contracts to manage. I've got environmental requirements. I've got due diligence, and fucking social media. Because if I don't have my fly done up, then I'm all over social media, Twitter, the rest of it. So it's not an easy pathway. So coming in with a simple solution that has been communicated and consulted and is easy for our teams to use. So make sure that it's available in the App Store, whatever your solution is, you know, and it is, but it's any extra solution. And make sure that it's using skills that the teams out on site already have. They can all text, despite the fact that a lot of them don't like technology and construction's coming along as the generations get younger. But you've got to use the skill that they've got. If they're shit at taking photographs and they're not very good at Instagram, don't ask them to take pictures. But they can all text. And I think that's, you know, we had a previous CEO of Apple UK come in for Talking Business, and that video's up on our YouTube channel. It's worth watching. Apple didn't predict the success of texting, and neither did Microsoft. And so, but we all know that we can text, and so it's very important to make sure that the pathway to texting through the mobile device is as simple and, more importantly, as fucking fast as you can make it, so there's no delay. And that's going to be the simple pathway to tapping the skills that they have and they use outside of work, and bring that skill inside. No extra license, no extra Microsoft 365, no extra. It's straight into that.
Good.
Sorry,
a lot of tech.
Yeah.